Hi, guys. Okay, so here is our next chapter. It is a short one, so it's only going to be one video. And I will have our connection question at the beginning and then our comprehension questions at the end. It's called The Meeting. So this is going to be all about the meeting that our narrator is about to witness happening. In our last chapter, the narrator kind of got stuck in a situation. He had been hiding, and the ladies so the meeting that they were planning on having was said to be for the Royal Society of the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. And I had expressed to you guys that, I thought that maybe there was something a little sneaky and suspicious about that. So maybe we'll find that out in this chapter. The connection question that I want you to be thinking about and making connections with is, have you ever tried to hide from somebody? If you have, I want you to write about why that is, and why you were hiding. Write about what happened during that time, the things that you saw, heard, what you experienced, all of those things. If you have never tried to hide from somebody, then you can feel free to write about what you think it would be like and what would be a situation where you would need to hide from somebody. And you may write about that as well. So whether you have or have not, there's an opportunity for you to write about that. Our 3 vocabulary words that I want you to be listening for this time around are cope, C-O-P-E. That's like handling something. So if I ask you to cope with this new setup that we have where you have to do your work at home and I have to teach you from home, we're coping with that. We're kind of handling it. We're dealing with it. That's kind of what that means. Swiftly, which I think we've probably talked about before, that just means kind of like quick and agile. And then frantically, which means kind of crazy. So those are the 3 words that we're going to be thinking about. And again, this chapter is called The Meeting. Now that the manager had gone, I was not particularly alarmed. What better than to be imprisoned in a room full of these splendid ladies? If I ever got talking to them, I might even suggest that they come and do a bit of cruelty to children prevention at my school. We could certainly use them there. In they came, taking their heads off. Talking their heads off. They began milling round and choosing their seats, and there was a whole lot of stuff like, "Come and sit next to me, Millie dear," and, "Oh, hello, Beatrice. I haven't seen you since the last meeting. What an adorable dress you have on." I decided to stay where I was and let them get on with their meeting while I got on with my mouse training, but I watched them for a while longer through the crack in the screen, waiting for them to settle down. How many were there? I guessed about 200. The back rows filled up first. They all seemed to want to sit as far back from the platform as possible. There was a lady wearing a tiny green hat in the middle of the back row who kept scratching the nape of her neck. She couldn't leave it alone. It fascinated me the way her fingers kept scratching away at the hair on the back of her neck. She had known somebody was watching her from behind. I'm sure she would have been embarrassed. I wondered if she had dandruff. All of a sudden, I noticed the lady next to her doing the same thing. And the next one. And the next. A whole lot of them were doing it. They were all scratching away like mad at the hair on the backs of their necks. Did they have fleas in their hair? More likely it was nits. A boy at school called Ashton had had nits in his hair last term, and the matron had made him dip his whole head in turpentine. It killed the nits all right, but it nearly killed Ashton as well. Half the skin came away from his scalp. Here they all are, scratching away. Interesting. I began to be fascinated by these hair-scratching ladies. It is always funny when you catch somebody doing something coarse and she thinks no one is looking. Nose-picking, for example, or scratching her bottom. Hair-scratching is very nearly as unattractive, especially if it goes on and on. I decided it had to be nits. Then the most astonishing thing happened. I saw one lady pushing her fingers up underneath the hair on her head. In the hair, the entire head of hair lifted upwards all in one piece, and the hand slid underneath the hair and went on scratching. She was wearing a wig! She was also wearing gloves. I glanced swiftly around at the rest of the now seated audience. Every one of them was wearing gloves. My blood turned to ice. I began to shake all over. I glanced frantically behind me for a back door to escape through, but there wasn't one. Should I leap out from behind the screen and make a dash for the double doors? Those double doors were already closed, and I could see a woman standing in front of them. She was bending forward and fixing some sort of metal chain around the two door handles. Keep still, I told myself. No one has seen you yet. There's no reason in the world why they should come and look behind this screen. But one false move, one cough, one sneeze, one nose blow, one little sound of any sort, and it won't just be one witch that gets you. It'll be 200. At that point, I think I fainted. The whole thing was altogether too much for a small boy to cope with. But I don't believe I was out for more than a few seconds, and when I came to, I was lying on the carpet, and I was still, thank heavens, behind the screen. There was absolute silence all around me. Rather shakily, I got to my knees and peered once again through the crack in the screen. All right, friends. So you can infer from the way that the narrator has now took us through the experience that he's having that he now believes that all of those women in the room are witches. He's talked about their gloves. He talked about some other things. So our first question for comprehension this time around is, how does the narrator discover that all of the ladies in the room are witches? Number 2, you're going to describe in a few sentences what the narrator sees as he spies on the ladies from behind the screen. So you need to write a tiny paragraph here talking about what exactly is it that he's seeing. Give some good details about what the narrator sees the ladies doing and looking like. Excuse me. And then number 3, what do you predict will happen next? So after he peers out again and is watching the ladies closely, what do you think is going to happen in our next chapter? And I'm going to give you a little hint about this. And I'm going to show you the picture. Oh, let's see here. There it is. There's the picture. And that the next chapter is called Frizzled Like a Fritter. So I will give you the chance to answer those questions. And then the next chapter that you will be reading will be Frizzled Like a Fritter. It looks like this one is pretty long, so the next one will be broken into 2 different videos, so you'll need to watch both for that. But for this one, you just have the one video, and everything's here that you need. So let me know if you have any questions.